Hi, hello everyone. Apologies for the slight delay, a few technical issues, but we always have that. Welcome to Tea Time SEO. I hope everyone's got their coffee or tea ready for us today. Perfect. We have a very international tea time today. I'm SEO Joe Blogs. I'm streaming from Barcelona, from the Authoritas. We have Carrie from Authoritas, streaming from Putney. Ben's over in, I forgot, sorry, Ben, you just told me, near Nottingham. You told me where you were today.
Well, Lincolnshire, near Nottingham.
Lincolnshire.
Yeah.
We have Rick. Are you in London today?
Yeah, I'm about 5 minutes away from Tower Bridge right now.
Very nice. And Dave, where are you today?
I'm from Victoria, Canada.
Oh, very nice. So we have not bad tea time. Our speakers are dialing in from 2 different continents and 3 different countries. So we've got an exciting lineup today. We were talking all about user intent. We have Ben, Dave, and Rick all sharing their insights. And also, I wanted to say that here at Authoritas, we actually have a user intent feature within our keyword rankings module. So we have been able to split out the different user intent aspects. So that's navigational, informational, research, and transactional. So it is important to be able to distinguish what type of user intent you have for your terms, because then you can actually see, are you having a commercial? Is it more of a commercial or transactional type of term? How can you change your page to then make sure that you are converting those customers? But we also have this within our SERPs API, and actually Jason Bernard has been using it with his company Calicube. So he's been using the intent score within the Authoritas SERPs API, and you can find out more about Jason. He's actually launching a course, which I will share in the chat later. So we're really lucky to have 3 speakers give their insights all about user intent. We have Ben, Dave, and Rick, and wanted to say thank you very much, everyone, for coming. Marianne, Lotto, Sarah, and everyone else not signed in. We will have our 3 speakers giving their insights, but please also drop your questions in the chat, and Carrie will take the questions afterwards. And if you're enjoying the show, give a nice little thumbs up and subscribe to our YouTube channel. So I'm going to pass over to the speakers who will introduce themselves. Over to you, Ben.
Great, thanks, Joe. Yeah, my name is Ben Garry. I work at a company called Informational, which is based in Nottingham here in the UK. And that's where I've spent my SEO career. I joined as a student in 2016 at the start, so just coming up to 5 years now. And being a content specialist means that my passion for writing and language that I've had through my uni days crosses over into everything I do with SEO now. So really anything to do with writing on a website, I've probably been involved with it at some point. And that's what I enjoy about SEO. It makes SEO fun for me. And I also co-host the RankUp podcast with a colleague from Impression called Ed, where we talk about anything and everything to do with on-page SEO. So please do check that out if you enjoy this today.
Hey, everybody. I'm Dave. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Beanstalk Internet Marketing. Started it with my wife and still managed to like her after over 15 years of doing this. Yeah, I'm a writer, and I don't know, I've been doing this long enough to remember when, I don't know, Google was serving Yahoo search results, and that was a big thing that was allowing Google to have some solid market share. So seen some ebbs and flows, but we're in some exciting times and looking forward to chatting user intent.
Cool. Hey everyone, I'm Ric Rodriguez. I'm head of search at Vashi. Vashi are a fine jewelry and diamond company. I used to be the search evangelist at Yex, who are another technology company around across Europe. Big history in SEO of mostly agency side, so working with networks like iProspect and large agencies, part of Hearst iCrossing, all the way down to startups and smaller agencies too. I'm a writer. I do a lot of speaking, and I've been quite an awards judge quite a few times this year. And to me, Intent is part of this whole idea of the science behind systems. It's the psychological impact of kind of why people do things they do, the way they do them, and then how the systems react as a result, and getting into what information retrieval really means behind search engines.
Excellent. Thanks, Rick. Yeah, so I've got kind of the introductory slot today. So I'll be starting out by talking through what user intent is and some kind of foundational tips there. So we'll start with a definition on the next slide when that comes up. Yeah, there we go. So user intent is the same as search intent. They're basically used interchangeably. And if you hear those terms, we're talking about the same thing. And I see it as the purpose behind search queries. So if what someone actually searches is, you know, that is the query, that's the what, then intent is the why behind that and what they're hoping to achieve. And the reason we pay attention to this is two reasons, really. One, because the biggest search engine in the world, Google, makes a big deal about search intent, and that's kind of a reason we have to listen. And also because it's going to give people the best experience on our site if they're actually finding what they're looking for through the search results when they land on our sites. And to focus on Google for just a second, you know, this is something that's been really important to them really throughout the 2010s. They've been trying to get better at understanding quality responses to search queries. And now we're here in 2020, there's all sorts of natural language processing and incredibly clever stuff going on behind the scenes to make sure that in Google, we're now seeing exactly what we want to see when we make a search, and we're as happy as we can possibly be when we leave that. And as brands, as marketers, we need to get in on that if we're going to have any kind of success in Google search. And as Joe alluded to at the start, as the Authoritas tool does, there are a few ways we can break down search intent. And there are kind of three main categories that Google talks about, which they call do, know, and go. But more broadly, we refer to them as transactional, informational, and navigational. And transactional is when someone wants to make some kind of commercial interaction with a business, whether that's buying something, signing up for a service, anything like that. Kind of one step behind that is this fourth category, which is research on the Authoritas platform, which is when people are kind of researching products and other commercial things, but they're not quite ready to go and make a purchase yet. So maybe they're making comparisons or looking for the best in a category or something like that. Then informational is incredibly broad, sits behind everything else. It's when people are looking for anything really, but they're not planning on going and making some kind of business engagement. So it could be questions about anything from the natural world to cloud computing to whatever. And then finally, navigational is where people are using search as a shortcut to a destination that they already know. They just don't know the website they want to type into the browser, or they'd rather just go through Google, and it's really just a shortcut for them. It is a lot more complex. It is more nuanced than that. You can break them all down further. But as a starting point for our strategies and thinking about this, those are some really helpful categories we can use. And then here, I've just put an example of search intent in the wild, or user intent in the wild. It's a little bit small on the screen there, but if you can see it, I've searched for running shoes. And you can see in the red boxes, that's the top ranking result there as an e-commerce category. And on the right, we've got some shopping ads from Google. And these are the kind of signs that we can be looking for to understand what search intent Google is seeing in a query and what kind of thing we might need to be doing in order to rank. But there's an interesting wrinkle here, as there is in so many searches, where it's not that straightforward, because there's also this local result where we can see a few different shops selling running shoes on a map. And where we see this, if I'm looking at this as a site owner, I might be thinking, well, I can get my e-commerce categories, try and target this query with those, but maybe there's something more for me here. If I've got physical stores, then I should be paying attention to this and seeing how else can I be getting visibility for these kind of search results and really trying to get whatever advantage I can. And that really leads into the first of the three tips that I wanted to bring to round out my section, which is before creating new pages, and especially things you're going to be putting a lot of time and effort into, really analyze what's there already, because what's there in the search results is one of the best ways to tell us what kind of thing we should be doing in order to rank well and succeed. A platform like Authoritas will do that really well at scale. They break it down really nicely. I've been playing around with the platform a lot in the last few days. And it's really visual and really good, but also just getting in there yourself and seeing what's there. There's no substitute for it, because you'll really see how it's individualized. And that brings me on to the second point, which is when you're looking for these opportunities, I really want to aim for that sweet spot between what you offer and what your searchers are looking for. So you want to be looking for those queries where you can satisfy the intent really well with your brand's service offering, products, expertise, whatever it is you can offer. You want to find those opportunities and really focus on those, because that's where you're going to see the best results, basically. And finally, I just wanted to give an example of how you can map this onto a user journey. I'm sorry, I'm going to confuse Joe by going back a couple of slides because it's the images that are changing. So this is one where I was working with a solicitor and we wanted to broaden their appeal for tax investigations. And we realized there was a big informational intent behind this, with people making kind of searches looking for information before they're ready to talk to a solicitor. So we started by creating an FAQ page with loads of different questions and answers on it that ranked well just for tax investigation. And these broad terms, it did really well for. You can see we've got the featured snippet there. But we realized if we go to the next slide, that there was a big opportunity for more detailed questions, which was a bit of a nuance in the informational category, because we realized people needed more information than one FAQ page could give them. So what we did was we created individual question and answer pages, just focusing on one topic. And again, we were able to start ranking for those and broaden our appeal. And then finally, we made sure we focused on the service page as well, because informational content often can't get you the whole way and can't get those signups. So we saw tax investigation solicitors as a really important transactional keyword and made sure we optimize the service page for that, which now also ranks top at least sort of locally around here. So what we did there was we saw what the whole user journey was and saw how different user intent played parts, and created different kinds of content to match user intent at different points, which got visibility for the brand across the whole spectrum. And I think there's opportunities to do that really in any industry where there's interest in the niche and what you do. But that's everything from me. I will hand over to Rick now.
Great stuff. Thank you very much. So now we all know about what user intent is and some ideas of how you can start bringing that into your work. I guess I wanted to double click on the pragmatic part, the how do you go about this and what does that mean for your business? So the first point is, when people hear about user intent, it can often be interpreted as specifically these keywords. And actually, I think there's a point here of just ignoring keywords entirely for topic research. So do what you need to do with rankings, etc., etc. But in terms of working out what someone is looking for, while certain keywords can be important, actually they're just a vehicle that people use to find the information they need. And here's some stats for you: like 15% of all searches are totally brand new. There's an expectation that 70% are long tail. When you start doing the maths on this stuff, you look at 800 million searches conducted a day have never been seen before. So what that tells you is that there's a set of terms out there that are in the majority that have only ever happened once. So things like the keyword volumes that you'll see in the planner don't reflect a whole world of demand and intent that is going on. So, and there's a point around data being approximate and all of the sort of errors and problems we have with using keyword data from Google directly. So first point is, think about people and what those people want, as opposed to just writing what the keywords say you need to do. And if we go to the next slide, please. Here we go. One great way of doing this is to get in touch with your customer experience teams, right? If you're a business and you've got tons of, you've got people that are buying your service or engaging with your brand, a really good way to find out what people want and what they're looking for, which will be reflected in what they search for, is from your customer experience teams. What are the things that keep getting brought up? And there's a first point here, which is that actually being the brand is no longer a guarantee of being the branded answer. If people are looking for information and a publisher, a blogger, another site has a better version of the truth than you do, that's what Google will serve if it thinks it's the right answer for that user's intent. So actually understanding questions and just writing about what you do, informed by what the people are asking your customer service teams, is a great way to start. And really importantly, if they're being asked, if your teams are being asked, there's a real strong chance that your website is being asked and search engines are being asked too. All right, so take away all these themes and look for and sort of the specifics here. Partly because this is great for your search strategy, but it can be used in so many different ways too. If we go to the next slide, this is something I've done. So I've never really been, I'll be honest with you, I've never been an expert in fine jewelry or in the diamond industry. So I've actually had to go through this process myself. But actually, whether you're agency side or brand side, it's on you to become your own business, your own specialist in the subject matter that your business or your client focuses on. And the reason I suggest you do this is because you'll start to figure out where information is and where it isn't, and what the sort of information that's out there is. And the bottom line is, if you're not getting what you want from YouTube or from your investigation, that means that your customers aren't, and as a result, there's an opportunity to create it. What couldn't you find? What was badly explained? What did you need more information on? This is all great ideas, even if it looks like this term is already well dominated, to come up with information that can beat your competitors and get to the top. And if we go to the next slide, finally, there's a really big point here, which is we think of search as performance marketing a lot of the time, as we are here to drive clicks and conversions, and that's what we're here to do. And the reality is that we're neither brand or performance. We kind of sit in this messy middle where people are having experiences all the time in loads of different places, in loads of different ways. Journeys aren't linear. There are a set of different moments that happen that get glued together, and they look linear, but in fact, they're very, very spontaneous. The great thing about what we do in search is that we can be there at any time and fulfill any role that a person needs, whether it's more information top of the funnel or about to convert and here's a product that's interesting. In fact, and this is a quote from Yext chief data officer, I keep the job title wrong. Search is a continuous spontaneous dialogue with customers, right? You can always have that constant connection. So when it comes to intent, sure, please do investigate, speak to your customer service teams, do your research, but at the same time, just having information that's useful and relevant is equally as much about serving user intent as going after very, very specific things. Cool, that's my section. Thank you, guys. Oh yeah, I need to summarize. So ignore keywords entirely. Be friends with your customer experience teams. Make your business, make sure you're your own subject matter expert and learn all the tricks on the way. And remember that search fulfills lots and lots of roles.
All right, I get, as far as I'm concerned, the fun one here. Because we're covering the future, and it touches on an area I think Rick, from what I was hearing before, would sort of love, where we're talking about the systems themselves. So how does this impact us into the future? And what I'm going to really be talking about or focusing on is how does Google, or Bing, but I refer to them as Google, deal with this. So there's a statement: the end justifies the means. But from a search standpoint, I think we could change it to the end is the means, from a googly sort of way. So what does this mean? It means that the search is now being driven by machines. This is just what we know. It started with BrainBrain in 2015, and it's moving forward to now. Anybody who saw Search On last week is well acquainted with the amount of AI that's being dumped into search. Okay. So to properly train and keep a system upgraded, machines need a reward. That reward is you. You are the cookie. So let's take, for example, the Google engineer named Stevie. So Stevie's planning a trip. He's heading over to the Big Apple to do a session. And he happens to notice, while he's looking for things to do, that the 5 boroughs are mentioned often in all of the pages that seem to satisfy his result. And Stevie starts wondering, as a Google engineer, what is there a correlation between entities existing on a page, restaurants, boroughs, etc., to improve their relevancy? So Stevie needs to deploy a machine learning system like BrainBrain, but serving a different function. And I can almost guarantee that this one's kind of dumped into the system by now at this stage of their evolution in machine learning. So he's now needing to set up this test. How does this work? And this is what's really important when we're talking about user intent. So we have to pre-train the system first, and this would be every supervised machine learning model, which is most of the ones that we'd be talking about related to search, outside of, we'd have unsupervised in Google News or something like that, but most of them would be in the supervised model. So it starts off with the pre-training, where Stevie would dump in a list of all the entities, locations, et cetera, everything about this page, and he would dump that into the Stevie Brain algorithm. But at the beginning of this, we would have to know what was the likelihood of it properly serving the user. We would need to be able to give Stevie Brain an answer to allow Stevie Brain to train itself to understand how to factor these different things in. So I've gone with a score of 0 to 1. It doesn't matter. I don't know what numbers that they're using there, but that's why you're seeing like 0.94. So we put in our answers, we put in our data to allow Stevie Brain to understand. So right now we're seeing out of the gate user intent in there. We have come up with an answer of this search result page. We're not judging the individual pages so much as we're judging the search result page, or at least Google is, because this is their test, not ours. This is theirs. So they're training the system to judge the search result page. They're dumping in the answers of something successfully meeting their user intent. So already we're seeing the bias of user intent injected in there because Google's trying to serve their users and they're basing this score on, did their users get satisfied? So that's what we're doing in the pre-training. Then we move on to the training stage. And in the training stage, they dump in the data. Stevie Brain comes up with a score. That score heads back over. It is compared with a known good score created by the Google engineer Stevie, or one of the millions of algorithms sitting behind there to create it. What's important about this stage, where they've given it, they've let Stevie Brain come up with a score and then compared it with a known good scores. Not only is Stevie Brain able to learn again, because it's continuing to train, going, oh, okay, I was right or I was wrong, or this is where I was close, readjust my algorithm appropriately, but it's allowing the engineers to understand how far off Stevie Brain is. And as soon as it crosses that threshold of better than our engineers are producing an algorithm for, it can be deployed live. So Stevie Brain's learning all the way through this, but we're needing to have concrete data to then feed it and go, here's the answer. Fact is, 15% of queries, as we heard, are unseen. Users are changing constantly, so we don't always know. We can't keep up with constantly knowing the answer. Sorry, next. So the training can never end. The world changes all the time, and Google needs to keep up with it. As we saw with RankBrain, they put it in for the 15% that we'd never seen, then deployed it fully live. What can possibly be a success metric in a world where we are trying to constantly keep up? You are the success metric. So Google needs to constantly keep up. So does Bing to their efforts, and they have some great machine learning systems. So they need to basically be able to program in what a successful SERP looks like, not what a successful site looks like, what is a successful search result page. So they need to be able to judge the different elements of a search result page and constantly readjust and go assigning scores, users are interacting with the page like this. This was a successful result page. So user intent doesn't impact your result specifically. User intent impacts the algorithm as a whole by necessity. So you may not be damaged with a poor user experience, but it's sure going to feel like it when the entire algorithm shifts to make those adjustments against you. So what can you look at to try and improve your user experience? Well, I like going, as Ben talked about earlier, just go straight to the source. What is Google presenting? Are they presenting videos? What are people also asking for? What are the other elements that we're seeing in the knowledge panel? What is Google telling you that a user for that query is also looking for? And you can even dig into the other sites that are ranking and go, what are they providing? And there's also a really, really neat tool that I've just stumbled on. Hat tip to Lily Ray for presenting this one. And it's called Also Asked. If you click, we can sort of see it here. And basically what it does is it takes the people also asked to the nth degree. It sort of follows them all the way through and goes, okay, they asked this, then from there they asked this, then from there they asked this, and it gives a great picture of what the also asked tangents all the way down are. So it's a wonderful tool that really paints a picture of what a user journey might look like and what they're curious about. And of course, use your brain. What are people also asking? And this goes back into what Ben and Rick were talking about too. Talk to your sales team. Talk to the people around you. Look through your chat bots and the chat functions on your site. See what questions are people asking. Look through your search history on your site search history and see what people are looking for there. And what are you looking for? Thanks. I'm with my niggas, we up on the mountain. Look at this money that my niggas counting. Yeah.
Great, thanks so much. There was a lot there. So we have a few questions, and I'll pass over to Carrie.
Great, thank you. So the first question we have is for Rick. What did you find when you were starting learning about a topic from scratch? For example, you mentioned you did this when you first started at your company.
Well, I think it's going to be different in every industry. And what I found was that a lot of the space is dominated by people that think they know what the customers want, but haven't actually gone out and spoken to the customers and said, you know, what do you actually want? So it's lots of guides and lots of like views of, hey, we think so. Diamonds are really complicated, but there's essentially 4 things you need to know. They call them the 4 C's. And a lot of the information was high level. It was, this is what it means and what we think you should go for and which is the most is important. But actually what it didn't cover was specifically when I'm dealing with, let's say, what we call a VVS2 diamond, which is a slightly speckly diamond that's not the best quality. What does that actually look like? And that's what most people care about. And so you can very quickly see that if that's the general narrative of what's in the space, and a lot of people will be having the same feeling, that you can start to shape your content to start thinking about what answers the question rather than what we think is just generally good to know on the topic.
Great,
that's interesting.
Yeah, that is useful. Thank you. Ben, how did user intent impact your client? Did you end up creating more content on service pages?
Yeah, well, that particular example with the law firm was quite an interesting one because there's a real blend of informational and transactional intent together, and it's often quite hard to tease them out. And we have really found, really just through experimentation and time over the years, they've been quite a long-term client, that actually answering some questions on the service pages and linking through to other informational content is really beneficial. And we often find that extending the pages with some more helpful information is key to helping them rank higher, even for sort of terms that we would consider transactional, like that tax investigation solicitors example that I included there. And actually, I think there were other factors involved, but the tax investigation solicitors page only really started ranking well once we'd created the informational content behind it. And you can get into sort of content depth and topic authority and things like that, which definitely played a part. But I think being able to show that we had the right resources on the site, no matter what users were looking for in that area, was a big part of its success as well.
Great, thank you. That's really useful, thanks. And we have a question for Dave. You talked about the future of user intent. Therefore, what can we implement now when it comes to user intent that will be in the near future?
Well, I think one of the things actually, and what Ben was talking about pretty much nailed sort of the way I think that we need to be viewing it. I mean, the launch of passages, it's going to be rolling out in December. That's a totally different sort of thing. But what Ben noticed, I think, is the hallmark, which is we added these informational queries in there, and then all of a sudden we started ranking for the more generic results. And it's if we want to prepare, I think the most important thing we can do is mentally take a step back and understand Google is not serving us. So my intent for my user is irrelevant. What I need to be thinking about is what the user at Google, when they're entering that query, what they're doing. And so it makes sense that when the user's entering a generalized query, that Google wants to serve them a page with a variety of different possible intents. And that's exactly what Ben did, was went, okay, now we've got the informational intents covered. So now when Google is judging that page, it can come in and go, okay, whether it's transactional, whether it's informational, we know that Ben's page has that because it has the information and it has this. Then, of course, you come down from our standpoint and Ben's standpoint. I'm sure it was done very, very carefully of going, yeah, but my intent is still this. So we need to have that. We need to make it very, very clear that our information is there. It's very prevalent. You can find it easily. But if you're here for a transaction, here's your primary path to get through there, because it is all about serving the client's fiscal needs first. But yeah, I think to properly meet the intent, that is what we need to be looking at is remembering, step back, go, it's Google's user, not ours. Google's about to lend them to us. And I need to serve that user, the one entering a query into Google, not the one who's hit my site.
That's really interesting. Thank you. And just one final question for all of you to answer really quickly. What would you recommend people do with regards to user intent tomorrow? Rick, do you want to start?
Yeah. I would suggest stop worrying about things like, just as a reference what I mentioned in my sort of presentation, stop worrying about things like the specific keywords that they want to target on the page and that kind of thing, and start thinking more about what do people actually want from the content? What is the information you can provide that's actually useful? The machines are getting better and better and better at recognizing patterns and systems, and that was referenced really, I thought it was a really awesome section of this. But ultimately, the systems are getting smarter, and actually they can recognize more specificity in what people are looking for. On the flip side, they need information to reference when people ask for it. So it's all well and good them recognizing it, but if there's no information on the other side to return, they're still stuck. So there's a whole kind of knowledge void that we could populate. And that's really how we focus on capturing that intent in my mind.
Great, thank you. Ben?
Yeah, I think because it's going to be different for every site. So maybe what I would recommend is go back to your site and have a look. Are there any landing pages that you see as hopefully that should be particularly valuable that maybe aren't performing as well as you want them to in organic search? And start from there. Like Rick said, don't fixate too much on individual keywords, but just see what kind of intent could those pages be serving and what maybe should they be serving. Are you just kind of missing that sweet spot between what Google wants to show and what you want to show users, and work up from there? Because maybe if a page isn't getting the visibility you want, maybe that's because it isn't quite missing an intent that's actually, it's not quite hitting an intent that's actually there in search at the moment. And maybe you need to take a step back and have a look and say, is there something else this page needs, or do I need to tweak it somehow so that it can actually start appearing for things that people are searching for out in the real world?
Great, thank you. And finally, Dave?
I'd say trying to get an understanding, well, one of the strategies, and this is to understand how Google understands you. One of the techniques I like to do when we have a good amount of content, but we're just not nailing what we want to do. Is it, what is our problem? Is it structural? Is it whatnot? Is actually just heading over to Search Console and taking a look at the related queries that we are ranking for. And I found that you can get some great insight there into looking at the queries that relate to what you're trying to rank for and sort of bucketing them in and going, are they informational, but I'm trying to rank transactional? Are they related to a subset of what I'm trying to rank? This is where we look to help build out our content strategies in a lot of cases. And sometimes just look at our internal linking structure and go, oh, okay, because we put those pages and they're more internally linked under our informational section. Oh, okay, this is actually making sense. We've confused Google. It needs to sort of shift that internal linking structure, or we just don't have enough content on this area. Let's do some keyword research or whatnot, or talk to our sales team and look in different areas. But basically go, how does Google see me? What kind of queries is Google ranking me for already? Okay, now let's pull that back and go, how do I need to refine this? And how do I need to train Google to understand that I'm actually about this as well? And it's usually on our end, our fault for producing too much informational if we're trying to be transactional or those sorts of things. And some refining with the data is super helpful.
That's really useful. Thank you, guys. We've just had a few more questions come in, but I think we've not got enough time for them. So take them to Twitter. I'll hand back over to Joe now.
Yeah, thank you very much. I just wanted to say, really appreciate you all giving up your time and sharing your insights, your live examples of user intent. Yes, we have got a few questions, but as Carrie said, we've run out of time, so we will continue the conversation on Twitter. These are Ben, Dave's, and Rick's Twitter account. We'll also tag you on LinkedIn as well. And thanks everyone, for you in the audience, for joining us today. If you have enjoyed and liked the video, please give us a nice little like. And we are going to be back next week as well. We're going to have a Halloween special, actually. So if you have a Halloween costume, or you have a Halloween area of your site, of your house, sorry, not your site, or it could have been of your site that you've decorated with nice little decorations, just hashtag #TeaTimeSEO and share your photos with us. So next Thursday, we have Maria, James, and Larissa, and they will be sharing with us lots of insights about Ultimate Guide to E-commerce SEO. So if you are able to join, that would be great. Thank you very much, Ben, Rick, and Dave, for joining us today on Tea Time SEO. And if anybody has any questions about Actually, yes, I had one question. Sorry, Ben, your podcast. Can you share that in the chat as well?
Yes. How do I share it in the chat from here? Do I just go into the YouTube channel after this? Will that be easiest? I'm not on YouTube currently.
Oh no. Or can you? Or you
I tell you what.
We'll tweet it out.
Yeah, tweet it out, and if you just go to impression.co.uk/blog, all of the episodes are there. So as a starting point, you can find it. But yeah, we can tweet it out afterwards as well.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. And authorities have their own user intent feature within their keyword ranking. So if you have any questions, please give us a call. It's sales@authoritas.com. Which doesn't allow us to always write what we'd like. So thank you everyone for joining us today, and we will be back next week, same time, and hopefully you will have your tea with us for another international SEO. Thank you everyone, and we'll see you soon.